Hey guys, it's Vanity Ezra back again with another Card Fight Vanguard deck profile. So hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and donate to the Patreon. So let's get someone started. Today's deck is Bermuda Triangle, Prisms. I have never built a Prism deck before. So anyone who in the comments who is a Bermuda main and loves Prisms, please do not come after me. I don't know what I'm doing, but this deck does work, and it's fun. There's just one thing that people might disagree on of being smart-ish. Two things, technically speaking. Let's go ahead and get this started. First up, the starter. Pure Gifter Alchi. 6k base, 10k shield. Auto and road upon you get to draw a card. Then if your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 1 or greater, put a quick shield ticket into your hand. The draw that I always top deck into. And the quick shield, which is a 5k shield that you normally use for discarding. Always helpful to have that. And just really good. So that's the starter. For draw PG, because who doesn't like draws, who doesn't like PGs, you combine them together, you got the best of both worlds. This deck does not need draws too much, but it does not hurt to have a PG, especially when the grade 1 lineup is kind of already filled with everything, so you might as well just have a PG. We got 8 crit for being Docking Shooter Pella, for Direct Sign Push, who for some reason every time I draft a crit, it's this one, and I always damage check this one for some bizarre reason. And for Alligator Cheer Pippi Layla, 4 heals. So 4 draw, 8 crit, 4 heals. The standard trigger lineup for most decks because, draws are helpful. Crits you kind of need to use to rush the opponent down, and the heals. If you don't run heals, you are a glass cannon that does not believe in luck and you value attacking over defense or anything that is remotely safety. Onto the main deck, 3 copies of Silent Ardor Solda, 8k base, 10k shield, continuous rear guard. All of your rear guards with the same card name as your Vanguard get boost and cannot be chosen by your opponent's card's effect. So, when you're going into late game and you're calling down your grade 3s from hand or grade 4s from hand that have the same name as your Vanguard, they'll get boost, and that's really helpful because the grade 4s might have a 24k base, and that would put them to all of your columns being over 30. Or if you're at grade 3, it's still a 13k base, so that's always helpful. And they can't be chosen by your opponent's card effect, so they can't just blow them up. So they have to build this up first, then they'll have to build those up. It's all around really helpful, so 3 copies. 3 copies of Scarlet Vivid Quail, 8k base, 10k shield, auto rearguard or van when placed, soul charge 1. This deck does not soul blast too much, but there is one card in this deck that soul blasts 3 for something. So having that 1 soul charge is always helpful, and then auto and road upon you get to call it to rear. I don't like wasting cards when I ride. It's a problem. That's kind of why I like the new starters, because whenever I would ride them, I would draw a card out of it. But at the same time, I still hate that, which is why I kind of like Forerunners more, because it builds up my field quicker. This is kind of like that, because, I'm wasting it for the first turn, but then when I ride a grade 2 on top of it, it gets called out to the board, and then I get a soul charge out of it. So really helpful. 3 copies. 4 copies of Mermaid Idol Sedna. 8k base, 10k shield, used to be a vanilla. Now it has a skill, and that I like it. Continuous Vanguard or Rearguard. During your turn, if you have another unit in the same column as it, it gets plus 5k power, so it's a 13k base, and that's really easy to get. All you have to do is just call something in front of it or behind it, so really nice. And then Auto Vanguard or Rearguard, when placed from hand, look at top 5, reveal up to 1 grade 3 from one of them, put it to your hand, shuffle your deck, and discard 1. So, basically, standard searcher, there's only 1 grade 3 in this deck. That's most likely what all of you will disagree on with me, that there should only be 1 grade 3. You might run more. I like to run 1 because I like to keep it in the Prism theme as much as physically possible, and that's why there's only 1 grade 3. And it just helps search for it. For some reason, I never miss this search. All of my other searchers is like a 1 in 5 chance I'm actually going to miss it. But, 4 in 5 chance that I'm actually going to miss it. But for some reason with this one, I have yet to miss its search. No matter what deck I'm playing, if it's in here, no matter what, I've always succeeded in the search. Even that one time where I have this is the one time where I only had 1 grade 3 and I just happened to see it from it. So, really helpful. 4 copies. 4 copies of Prism Image Clear. 8k base, 10k shield. Auto Vanguard, when placed, look at top 7 cards from your deck. Read up to 1 grade 2 or greater with the Prism in its card name and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. So that's helpful. It can search you, no counterblast, no soul blast, no nothing. You get a free search for any of the grade 2 or greater prisms and you should put it to your hand, and you don't have to discard it all. So that's really helpful. And then auto rearguard when placed from bind zone. Bind a card with Prism in its card name from your hand, or bind it from your drop zone, and draw a card, and this unit gets plus 10k power on turn. So that's an 18k base, and you get to draw out of it. So helpful. On to grade 2s. 3 copies of Tide Conductor Econis. 8k base, 5k shield. Auto rearguard circle once per turn. When your Vanguard is placed, you may have this unit get 5k power to end of turn. And if that Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater, Soul Blast 3 to draw 2. The draw 2 is just always helpful. You do Soul Blast only one other card in this deck, and it's a Soul Blast 1. This is the card where you kind of want to keep spamming this with to refill your soul constantly. But A, it's still helpful because it hits force numbers because it becomes a 13k base, and it can possibly get you 2 draws, so 3 copies. 4 copies of Top Idol Aqua. 10k power, 5k shield. Just like Sedna, it used to be a vanilla. Now it has a skill, and I actually like its skill. Continues Vanguard or Rearguard during your turn if you have another unit in the same column as it, gets plus 5k power, so same thing as Sedna, but different from Sedna. Auto Vanguard or Rearguard when placed, return up to one of your other normal units on your Rearguard to your hand, and if you return a card, draw a card, then discard a card. It is a named once per turn, which means you can't use it more than once, but say you whiffed your Sedna search. You could use its skill to bounce Sedna, draw, discard, call Sedna back, look at top 5, and hopefully get the effect off. Or you could bounce this thing to get more soul out of it. Or you could bounce the next grade 2, which is also non-place on rear. So all around, just a helpful card. 4 copies. Speaking of the next grade 2, 4 copies of Prism Image Rosa. 10k base, 5k shield, auto Vanguard or Rear Guard, unlike its grade 1, which is only a Vanguard place. When placed, counterblast 1, look at top 7 cards on the top of your deck, reveal up to 2 prisms in their card names from among them, put 1 into your hand, and bind the other, and shuffle your deck. So, that's good. You don't have to discard for it. Yes, you got a counterblast, but it's not a named once per turn. It's not a once per turn in general, and you get to top 7, get a free search of any grade, add it to hand, and then bind another one, and that can be used for setup later. And auto rearguard when placed from bind zone, all of your front row units with Prism in their card name get plus 10k power down of turn. The grade 1 gives itself plus 10. This gives plus 10 to the whole front row. So it's like a front trigger. So that means that grade 1 is going to be hitting for 28, this is going to be hitting for 20, and presumably the Vanguard's going to be hitting for 23. So all around, really helpful card, and you can bounce it with Aqua. 4 copies. 4 copies of Prism Image Vert. 13k base, Force Gift, no shield as expected because it's a grade 3. Act, and the only grade 3 at that, Act Vanguard Circle once per turn. Soul Blast 1 and bind a Prism card from your drop zone or rear. If you bound a card, it gets plus 1 drive. So that's helpful. If you don't have a Prism in drop or on board currently, but there's one in Soul, use Vert skill. Soul Blast that Prism out, bind the one you just Soul Blasted, and it gets the extra drive. So it just makes a triple drive really easily. Or it can just set up by calling down a bunch of Prisms earlier and then just binding them one by one. And then auto Vanguard Circle, when it attacks, counterblast 1 and bounce your whole front row. Call up to 1 Prism in its card name from your bind zone to rear, and if your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater, call a total of 2 Prisms in their different card names instead of 1. So that's helpful. You can call down, first off, you can do Sedna and Aqua plays, or Aqua and, this thing to constantly get more soul and just more power out of it. You call down this, and let's just say Sedna, or this to the board, it gets plus 5. You attack with the 2 columns, both without boost. They should presumably hit numbers to where they have to guard. And then you attack with Vert, skill of Vert, counterblast, bounce this, call from your bind zone, both Rosa and Clear. Skill of Clear gets plus 10k power, and you bind for next turn, and you get a draw out of it. Then skill of Rosa, you get plus 10k to the whole front row, so you're hitting for at least 15k guards on... The Vanguard's hitting for a 15k guard unless you're on force unless you have a force 1, but otherwise that's a 15 for a 1 to pass. Rosa is a 10k guard, and Clear is a 20k guard. So all around, it does that. And it's just helpful because it gets you a triple drive, which means they'll most likely have to guard more, unless they just want to straight up PG it. So very helpful. 4 copies. And finally, the last card, the main reason why this deck is here, and the only new card from the set that I decided to put in here because I don't really like the grade 1 and 2. I don't feel like they need to be here because the deck works perfectly fine without them. In fact, I've had better luck with this deck than I had with the other deck that did have them, and this deck just feels more consistent to me, but you do you. 4 copies of Legendary Prism Duo, Nectaria. Force Gift, no shield, 14k base, does have Twin Drive. Act, hand, bind this card, search your deck for up to 1 normal unit, bind it, and shuffle your deck. It is a name once per turn, but that is helpful, because it's a free bind, so you can use it later with Vert. Then, you can search your deck for any normal unit and bind it. It doesn't have to be a Prism, you can just do it to deck then if you want, but it's helpful because it can bind a copy of this, it can bind this for whatever reason to use the effect to give it boost from the first grade one we talked about, or you can bind Rosa for later, or you can bind Clear for later. And then its other skill, Continuous Vanguard or Rearguard. During your turn, if you have a card with the same card name as this unit in your bind zone, this unit gets plus 10k power guaranteedly. That's a 24k base. You combine that with the grade 1, 2 24k boosters if you have them both in the back row, if you have 2. And that's just helpful. And then if it's on Van, it gets plus 1 crit and plus 1 drive. So that's all around helpful, because if you have 2 of these on the board, 1 of them in the bind, 1 on Van, 2 in the back row, which means all of them are out of deck, you got plus 1 crit on Van, putting it at 2 crit, 24k power, and triple drive, and the other ones have 24k base with boosting, and you can have anything in the front row, such as an Aqua, and this thing just to have more power out of it, bringing both of your numbers to 37k and 39k, forcing out, at the very least, 25k guard from both sides, that being assumed they have force numbers. If they don't, those are 30k guards each, on just the rear guards alone. The Vanguard will most likely have to be 32k, but hey, that's still something. It's all around really helpful card. You can use it to rush, you can use it to get a lot of power. That's a 14k base, which means not force numbers alone would have to hit it. They have to be on a grade 4 to hit it without boosting. So really helpful. Either that or they're just using a force gift. 4 copies. On to the gifts. My personal opinion, you should use Force 2 with this deck because the deck can get a lot of power on its own, and just using Force 2 would force them to guard more, I guess. If you want to do Force 1 to get rid of more cards in their hand, or just force them to eventually take a bunch of attacks, then use Force 1, but I prefer Force 2. So anyways, 5 Force 1, you should only need to ride 5 times, because you need one of these in bind. I would suggest that you only call 2 of them to rear, which means you're only riding one of them, which leaves you to ride 4 verts. I'm not saying you're going to ride 4 verts, but if that's the case, that's the case. So 5 gifts. Force 1 is just the standard. When acquired, you can go on Van or Rear, and the unit that's on gets plus 10k power during your turn only, and it can be stacked, so you can use it multiple times. And then Force 2, it can't be stacked, but it's also Vanguard or Rear Guard, and its original critical becomes 2. You place it on Nectaria, it has, assumably that the situation I set up earlier applies, 24k base, triple crit, and triple drive. So unless they're at 2 damage, they have to guard 2 or 1 damage or 0. They have to guard that if they want to guarantee them living. And even when they're at 2 damage, I still say you guard it, because they might just pull a crit and you might just die. And then finally the quick shield, where it's the standard when one of your units is attacked, it gets plus 5k power till end of battle. Why it's not an actual 5k shield being called a quick shield, I will never understand, but this is how it works. And finally, it's just this. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, donate to the Patreon. I have a Discord, so you can go join that. There is a Twitch channel, so you can go follow that. My second channel that launched a few weeks ago last week, is focused on Beyblade. So if you like Beyblade, you can go subscribe to that. And all of those links are in the description below. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to stand up your Vanguard.